In this movie, I'm going to continue working on the layout of my 2-bedroom condominium, and I'm going to focus on several modify tools that we have available to us. Now, tools like move, copy, trim, extend, offset, these are staple commands in any CAD program, and REVIT is certainly no exception. So to access these tools, we're going to go to the Modify tab, and you're going to find all of these commands on the Modify panel. So let's start with the basic move command. So that command is right here, and the shortcut for it is MV. Now, what I'm actually going to do here is pause over the tooltip for a moment, and I'm going to let it play. What you'll see is that each of the tooltips for these modify commands actually run little small animations. So if you just take a few moments and let the animation run, it gives you a little bit of insight into how that command actually works, and it can be really helpful to learn each of these commands. So I highly recommend that you do that. So I can click the button, or notice the shortcut for it is MV. And if you click the command first, what'll happen is REVIT will then prompt you for a selection because I don't have anything selected. So I would have to select some object, and then in order to complete selection, I have to indicate that to REVIT either by right-clicking or pressing Enter. So now I'll press Enter. The next step is to decide what point you want to start the move at and then where you want it to end up. So you're basically picking the object up, you're going to walk with it, and you're going to put it down. Now, you could do this in a variety of ways, but let's say that I wanted to move this wall the exact amount of the distance of this closet. So I could use my object snap here and use that as my start point. And then I could slide over here and use the object snap again and use that as my end point. And notice that even though I'm picking points down here by the closet, what it's actually doing is moving the selected wall by that amount. So that's certainly one way that you could use the move command. Now, when I look at that, I realize, well, that probably wasn't what I wanted. I moved it a little bit too far. So I'm going to keep the wall selected and show you the other way that you can deal with selection when it comes to these modify tools. And I'm going to stay with the move command. And because the wall is already selected, notice that when I click the move command this time, it doesn't prompt me for a selection. It just immediately goes to start point, new point. Now, you don't have to snap points on screen. What you can actually do is just click any random point on screen, start moving in the direction that you want to move, in this case horizontally to the left, and then type in how far you want to go. So maybe I want to go 750 millimeters. So I'll type that in and press Enter, and then it will move the object that amount. So whether you click the points or type the values in, it really doesn't make a difference. The point is that with the move command, you're picking the object up at a start point and you're putting it down at a new point. Now the copy command works exactly the same way. So if I click the copy command, I've already got an object selected. Again, pick my start point for the copy and then my new point for the copy. And instead of moving the original this time, it moves a copy. So now I've created this wall, but I don't really want it here. I really want it down in the lower portion of the plan. Now I could use the move command for that if I wanted to, but notice that if you try and move it, what's going to happen is that it's actually going to stay attached at that end. So I'm going to undo that. So if I select it again, if you don't want it to stay attached at that end, then what you can actually do is check this little box right here to disjoin it. So when I click my start point now and my new point, and I'll just do this randomly, notice that it moves the wall and it disconnects it at the other end. So you always have that option. So it's really important that you pay attention to the options bar when you're using these commands, because there's always little useful settings in there that if you miss them can make your job a little bit harder. Now, another way that you could manipulate this wall is to simply use the grips at the end. So I'm just going to take this little control handle here at the end, and I'm going to drag it down until it intersects the other wall, and you'll see that those two walls will actually join up together. You can fine tune the length of it at this end as well if you like, using the same technique. Okay, so that's move and copy. The next thing I'd like to look at is the trim command. Now, it's actually trim and extend at the same time, and there's a few varieties of this command, but the one that I'm going to look at here is the trim and extend to corner. Now, the way this command works is it makes corner conditions. So if I demonstrate right here, basically take this wall and then click this wall, what you'll see is it creates a corner between those two walls, but of course it trimmed off the part to the right. If I realize I don't want to do that and I actually want to put it back the way it was, then I can do this, and now it'll extend and fill in that gap that was removed. So it's both a trim and an extend command. Now let's use it over here in this location. We're going to enter the condo right here, and I want a small coat closet in this location. So to do that, I'm going to select this wall and then this wall, and you'll see a small little pair of dashed lines show me what it's going to look like when I click, and it will extend those two walls to join up with one another and create a corner. Now, how does it know whether to trim or extend? Well, if you pay attention to the prompts at your status bar and watch the little dashed lines on screen, you get all the clues you need. So for example, if I select right here and then here, notice that it trimmed that part off. Now, how did it know to do that? Well, when I click my first object, it says to click on the part you want to keep for your second object. So if I put that back again, and then I'll click this one, how does it know whether to trim to this side or this side? Well, if I click here, it will do that way, undo. And if I click here, it will go that way, undo. So always pay attention to the side you're clicking on, and that will determine whether it does a trim or an extend. Now I want to create a small corridor over here and then join up these two walls. So this time I'm going to use the offset command for this. Now offset's a kind of copy command, and it just creates a copy at some distance away. It's very similar to copy. You could use the copy for this as well. What you want to do is on the options bar, you want to indicate how much you want to offset. So I'm going to put in 1500 millimeters here. And then you highlight an object that you want to actually copy and offset. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see that there's a small dashed green line set some distance away, that 1500 millimeters. You want to pay attention to whether it's going up or down. So if you move your mouse slightly, it'll actually go up. So I want to make sure it's going down, and then I'll click, and it will create that copied wall at the 15 millimeter offset. Now I'll go back to trim and extend, select this one, and be careful, don't pick the top half, because if you do, you'll get that. What I want to do is pick the bottom half. That's the part I want to keep. And now I'll get this. Now I want my living room larger and my kitchen smaller. So let me cancel the command with the modify tool. And let me select this wall. And I can move the wall using the move command, but there's two things that I want to point out. First of all, if we go to move, notice that disjoin is still active. So if you were to actually move this wall, it will disconnect itself from the other wall. So let me do Control Z to undo that. Keep in mind that whatever options you check on the options bar, it's going to remember that for the next time you use the command. So just pay attention to that. The other challenge with move is that I would have to know exactly how far I want to move this wall to end up with the desired size for either the living room or the kitchen. Now, that might require some math that is at a level of precision that could be prone to error. So I actually prefer not to do this with the move command in this case. What I'm going to do instead is just what we did in the previous movie. I'm going to use temporary dimensions. Now I'm going to pan this view slightly here so I can get at this temporary dimension, and I'm going to click on it, and then I can just type in exactly the size that I want, 3750 in this case. And that will keep the two walls connected. I won't have to worry about that disjoin with the move command. So sometimes it can be a little bit better to use one of the other techniques that we've already discussed. Now, let me go to architecture and add in a few more walls. I need a small pantry right here, and I need a utility room in this location, and I'll worry about fine-tuning the sizes of those a little bit later. But now what I want to do is break out this segment of the wall right here. You can see it's one continuous wall, and we have a tool for that. If I go to the Modify tab and I click the Split Element tool, I can use this tool to basically break out a segment of that wall in between. Now, if you just click a point, what you actually get, let me cancel out of there, is two separate walls. Now, I'm going to undo that. That's fine. If you split it first into two separate walls, then you could do trim on both sides to clean it up. But it's actually a little bit faster if you remember to do this. Go to Split Element and look at the options bar. There's a Delete Inner Segment checkbox. It's the only option available here for this command. So if I check that, now I can very precisely start my split from here, end my split from there, and it will trim out the segment in between. And as I say, if you forget to do that, no big deal. You can always use the trim command to clean it up. But using that feature is usually just a little bit quicker. So as you can see, we have a variety of the common modify tools that you would expect to find in any CAD program. And using those, we can complement our existing temporary dimension approach and very quickly complete the layout of our floor plan.